The road to Hollow Creek twisted like a wounded serpent through the dense forest, its branches arching overhead as if trying to swallow anything that dared to enter. For university students, Daniel, Mara, Felix, and Jenna were squeezed inside Daniel's old Jeep, its headlights slicing through fog thick enough to feel. They were on their way to investigate an abandoned mansion known locally as the Ashford House, a property that had been empty for 4 decades after the sudden disappearance of the entire Ashford family. For their final-year documentary project, the group needed an original topic, something chilling and atmospheric. Hollow Creek had both in abundance. Jenna clutched her notepad nervously as she flipped through photocopied newspaper clippings about the family's disappearance. "It says no bodies were ever found," she murmured. "Just blood on the staircase and claw marks on the inside of the bedroom door." "Claw marks," she repeated, glancing at Felix to see if he had heard. He shrugged, pretending he wasn't uncomfortable, though his knee bounced nervously. "Probably rats," he said, not sounding convinced. Mara, who held the camera, leaned forward between the front seats. "Guys, the more disturbing the story, the better for the documentary. Think about it. This could be our best chance at winning the University Media Award." Daniel kept his eyes on the road, but he nodded. "We'll go in, explore, record everything, stay the night, and leave at sunrise. Easy." But nothing about Hollow Creek felt easy. Not even the air. As they crossed the old wooden bridge into the town limits, a heaviness fell over all 4 of them, like the forest had exhaled something stale and watching. The Ashford House stood at the top of a hill overlooking the creek, an enormous structure with 3 floors, arched windows, and a roof that bowed inward as if the house carried decades of secrets on its spine. Its once white walls were now gray and stripped with mildew, and the garden surrounding it had grown wild enough to hide animals, or worse. A single iron gate guarded the entrance, hanging crookedly on one hinge. When Daniel pushed it open, the metal screamed like something in pain. "Good omen," Felix muttered sarcastically, adjusting the backpack on his shoulders. They walked up the cracked stone path, the fog swirling around their ankles like living mist. The front doors were slightly open, as though someone had slipped inside not long ago. Mara raised the camera. "First entry shot," she whispered, and the red light blinked to life. Jenna hesitated at the threshold. "Why would the door already be open?" she asked. Daniel gave her a reassuring smile, though even he seemed tense. "Old houses shift. Wood expands. Sometimes things don't close properly." Jenna wasn't convinced, but she stepped inside anyway. The interior was a labyrinth of dusty furniture, long corridors, peeling floral wallpaper, and portraits whose eyes seemed to follow intruders. A chandelier hung above the foyer, its crystals covered in a layer of grime. The air carried the sharp metallic scent of old wood and something else, something faintly rotten. The group walked deeper inside. Mara filmed steadily, whispering commentary into her mic. The deeper they went, the colder the house felt. Almost unnaturally cold. Felix rubbed his arms. "Feels like a freezer in here." Jenna hugged herself. "There's no electricity. How can the temperature drop this much?" Daniel didn't answer. He was staring at a portrait of the Ashford family. Father, mother, 2 daughters, and a son. Oddly enough, all their faces had been scratched out with something sharp. "Must have been vandals," Daniel said, but his voice shook slightly. They set up their gear in the central living room, a wide, shadow-filled space with tall windows and a fireplace large enough to stand in. After filming their initial commentary, the group split up to explore different sections of the mansion. Daniel and Jenna took the east wing. Mara and Felix took the west. Mara kept filming while Felix narrated. According to Hollow Creek folklore, the Ashford family didn't disappear. They were taken. Mara raised an eyebrow. "Taken by who?" Felix swallowed. "Not who. What?" Before Mara could ask him to explain, a sudden slam echoed through the corridor. They both jumped. "Probably just the wind," Felix whispered, though the hallways were eerily still. They continued walking until they reached a bedroom at the very end. Mara pushed the door open slowly. The room looked untouched, bed neatly made, toys arranged on the shelves, a small rocking chair in the corner facing the window. Felix stepped closer. This must have been the younger daughter's room. Mara filmed the chair. Creepy that it's all still intact. As she panned the camera, Felix noticed something. Mara. The chair is moving. They froze. The rocking chair was shifting back and forth, slowly but unmistakably, creaking softly in the silent room. No wind. No open windows. No explanation. Mara's breath shook. Let's go back. Meanwhile, Daniel and Jenna climbed the stairs to the second floor. The wooden steps groaned under their feet, each crack echoing up the hallway. Jenna felt a chill wrap around her, almost like fingers brushing her shoulder. She whipped around. Nothing. Daniel noticed her panic. Hey, you okay? He asked gently. Jenna exhaled shakily. I just felt something behind me. Daniel forced a laugh. Probably just nerves. But even as he said it, he kept glancing over his shoulder. They reached the master bedroom, its door half open. Daniel pushed it gently. The room was enormous, with a canopy bed draped in torn fabric. On the far wall were deep scratches, long, jagged, and uneven, as though something huge and furious had clawed at the plaster. Daniel ran his fingers along the grooves. These aren't animal marks, he whispered. Too deep. Jenna pointed to the floor. Daniel, look. There were dark stains dried into the wooden boards, stains that looked disturbingly like blood. Before Daniel could respond, a low, rumbling groan vibrated through the room. He spun around. Hello? Anyone there? Silence. The air grew colder. Jenna stepped closer to Daniel. We need to go back downstairs. When both pairs reunited in the living room, everyone looked shaken. They shared their experiences, rocking chairs, claw marks, freezing rooms. Mara played back the footage of the rocking chair moving on its own. Daniel frowned deeply. We should leave. Something's wrong here. But Felix shook his head. We came for a documentary. This footage is incredible. If we leave now, we lose everything. Jenna hugged herself. Some things aren't worth it. Felix opened his mouth to argue, but suddenly, the front door slammed shut with a force that shook the house. Everyone jumped. Daniel ran to the entrance. The door wouldn't budge. He pushed. He kicked. Nothing. It was like it had been sealed shut from the outside. Then came the footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Above them. Right overhead. The four of them stood frozen, eyes lifted to the ceiling. The footsteps paced back and forth. Then stopped. A long creaking sound echoed, like a door opening upstairs. Mara whispered. Something's moving. Daniel grabbed a flashlight. We stick together. No one goes alone. They began climbing the staircase, each step vibrating with distant, muffled breathing. The second floor felt different now, charged with a presence that wasn't there before. Jenna clutched Daniel's arm, her eyes wide. Felix pointed toward the far end of the hall. The master bedroom door. It's completely open now. Daniel swallowed. It was half open before. Mara filmed despite her trembling hands. Maybe we should record everything from this point. As they approached the doorway, the temperature plummeted. Their breaths turned visible. A whisper floated past them, so close it felt like someone's lips were near their ears. Leave. Jenna whimpered. It's the house. It's warning us. Felix shook his head. Or trying to scare us. But his voice didn't carry the confidence he wanted. Inside the master bedroom, the air felt dense, crushing. The bed creaked as though something unseen sat on it. The curtains fluttered despite the sealed windows. Daniel scanned the room with his flashlight, and stopped. The claw marks on the wall were changing, lengthening, deepening, moving. Jenna screamed as the marks ripped downward in real time, as if an invisible hand was dragging claws through the plaster. Felix stumbled back. This is impossible. The house groaned, a deep, rumbling sound that shook dust from the ceiling. Mara backed toward the hall. We have to get out right now. Daniel grabbed them all. Downstairs. They ran down the stairs, but halfway down, the steps warped under Felix's foot. He tripped with a shout, tumbling to the bottom. His leg twisted beneath him. I think it's broken, he groaned, face pale with pain. Jenna knelt beside him. We need to carry him. Daniel lifted Felix, slinging his arm over his shoulder. Mara rushed to the living room, and froze. Guys. The furniture moved. Everything in the room, sofas, chairs, table, had rearranged itself into a circle facing the staircase. As if expecting them. Waiting. Jenna whispered. The house doesn't want us to leave. Suddenly, the grandfather clock in the corner began ticking. Fast, loud, unnatural. Tick 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 tick, unlike any normal clock. Then it struck midnight. All the lights Daniel had brought flickered violently. The fireplace roared to life despite no one touching it. Shadows stretched along the walls, twisting and contorting into human shapes, though no bodies cast them. Felix screamed, pointing. Look! The shadows were walking. Approaching. Silent, elongated figures with hollow eye sockets and long fingers. Mara fumbled with the camera, capturing everything despite her trembling. Daniel grabbed Jenna's hand. Basement. Now. They rushed toward the basement door, slamming it shut behind them. The stairs were steep, leading into nearly total darkness. Daniel flicked his flashlight back on. The basement smelled of damp earth and mold, thick enough to choke. There has to be another exit, Daniel insisted. Jenna shook her head. Old houses didn't always have them. Felix sat heavily on the floor, groaning. We're trapped. Mara swept her camera around the room, and stopped. What is that? In the far corner stood wooden crates. Beneath them, partially uncovered, lay a trapdoor. Daniel hurried over, pulling it open. A cold gust rushed upward. A tunnel descended into the ground. It leads somewhere, Daniel said. Maybe outside. But before they could climb down, the basement door upstairs shook violently. Boom, boom, boom. Something was pounding on it. Hard. Mara whimpered. It's coming. Jenna helped Daniel lower Felix into the tunnel. Suddenly the pounding stopped. Silence. Then, footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Deliberate. Daniel shoved Felix down, yelling, Go! As he pushed Jenna and Mara after him. The flashlight flickered as the figure reached the bottom step. Daniel looked up, and froze. A woman stood there, wearing an old nightdress. Hair hanging over her face. Feet bare and filthy. Her head twitched unnaturally as she lifted her face. No eyes. Just dark, hollow sockets bleeding down her cheeks. The mother of the Ashford family. She opened her mouth, but instead of a scream, a deep, inhuman growl erupted. Daniel dove into the tunnel, slamming the trapdoor shut as the entity lunged. The tunnel was narrow and cold, crawling like a root-veined passage beneath the house. Mara cried silently. Felix groaned in pain. Jenna breathed in ragged gasps. Daniel pushed them forward. Just keep moving. Behind them, something scraped along the walls of the tunnel. Following. They crawled faster, hearts pounding. At last, they emerged near the woods behind the house, gasping for air. The night outside felt alive, but safer than inside. The house loomed in the distance, its windows glowing faintly as shadowy figures paced behind them. Felix sobbed. We have to get to the car. They carried him through the trees, branches whipping their faces. When they reached the jeep, Daniel threw Felix inside, then turned the key. Nothing. The engine coughed. Died. The house hummed, an almost pleased sound. Jenna screamed. Try again. Daniel turned the key. The engine roared to life. They sped down the dirt path, not daring to look back. Only when they crossed the bridge did the air lighten. The heaviness lifted. Felix cried in relief. Mara reviewed her footage through shaking hands. We captured everything," she whispered. Daniel looked at her sharply. "We're never showing that to anyone. Ever." But Mara stared at the footage, at the moving chair, the claw marks, the shadow figures. Something inside her whispered that the world needed to see it. That the story wasn't done. The next morning, local police found the Ashford house's front door ripped open, splintered, as though something had clawed its way out. And deep in the forest, far from human footsteps, a rocking chair sat alone, moving gently back and forth,